Good day and very welcome to our very first lesson in our breastfeeding series. And this lesson is on the anatomy and the physiology of breastfeeding. And I'm always saying that if you do understand the anatomy and the physiology of something, you understand so much better what to look for, what information to give the mother, how to improve breast milk production, etc. So to me, as I'm saying, this is almost the most important part of breastfeeding. Now, if we look at the exterior or the external anatomy of the breast, what's most important is the nipple. Around the nipple, we have this darker colored area, which we call the areola, and on them, the small Montgomery glands. Now, if we look at each one of these separately, the areola is, as I've said, this pigmented area around the nipple, and it doesn't play a significant role, but when we look at the interior anatomy, you will see just behind the areola sits sinuses where the milk's been stored and which the baby has to suck out, and that eventually we will see that it plays quite an important role. Now the nipples, also very important, they are being composed of horizontal and longitudinal smooth muscles, so it can contract when it's been touched and when the fetus, the baby sucks on it. It also has a lot of nerve endings, so that the moment that the baby sucks, that the message can go to all the glands that's responsible for the hormones, that's responsible for the production of milk. Also, just here behind the areola are small sinuses, and from them are many ducts bringing the milk from these sinuses to the nipple and opening on the nipple. And then the Montgomery follicles are these small nodules here on the areola, and they are secreting an oily liquid. When we look at the internal anatomy of the breast, there are certain things that play an enormous role in the production of milk. We have these glands in the breasts, and in these glands we have numerous small alveoli. And the alveoli are being lined with small cells which are responsible for the production of milk. And around each one of these alveoli, we find also a layer of muscles which contracts and makes that the milk move forward into these alveoli and into the ducts that comes from these alveoli and go into the breast. So here from these breast glands come numerous ducts, and they open in here kind of widenings in the ducts, which we call sinuses. Now when the baby sucks the milk, obviously it comes out in the ducts that's opening on the nipple, and he empties the milk here in the sinuses. And then milk is being produced, as we will see now in the glands, and move forward. Now when he stops drinking, the milk is being stored here in the sinuses. The milk that's been in the breast after drinking will be stored here in the sinuses, and then from the sinuses there's small ducts going to open on the alveoli, on the nipple, excuse me, and the baby will get the milk from the alveoli. Now, when we look at the breast changes during pregnancy, we see that from the very beginning of pregnancy, the breast starts being prepared for breastfeeding, and that happens under the influence of estrogen and progesterone, which is responsible for the formation of all these ducts and globules and alveoli, etc., so that they eventually will become productive after the birth of the baby. The milk production is being prevented during pregnancy because of the high levels of estrogen and progesterone. And these high levels of estrogen and progesterone suppress the other hormones that's responsible for breastfeeding, which we will come to just now. Now, after birth and after the birth of the placenta, the progesterone and estrogen levels drop drastically, and there's almost no progesterone and estrogen levels left in the blood, and that makes that the breastfeeding hormones, namely prolactin and oxytocin, can increase and become responsible for the production and the movement of the milk. Now, when we look at the physiology of breastfeeding, there are two very important processes. We call it the production of the milk, which is the responsibility of prolactin to a large extent, and then also the movement of the milk, the let down reflex, and that is the responsibility of the oxytocin. Now, if we first of all look at the production of milk. Now, the production of milk is being the responsibility of the hormone prolactin. And prolactin, the moment that the baby sucks, the prolactin is being secreted, and this prolactin tells the alveoli, remember the alveoli that sits in the glands of the breast, to draw water and nutrients from the bloodstream to make milk. And then when the baby starts drinking, it causes the milk to move forwards in those ducts, and that causes increased levels of prolactin to be secreted as well. So prolactin is being secreted all the time when the baby sucks, and milk is being produced all the time that the baby sucks. And this is a very important mechanism which we later will see again when we talk about improving or increasing milk production. So the prolactin is secreted at high levels while the baby is sucking, but also during the night when the mother sleeps. So she needs her sleep also for the production of milk. Now if we further look at the production of milk, we get the production on the first few days of nursing. When the baby starts sucking, we get the production of what we call colostrum. It's a thick yellowish liquid, and it's very rich in proteins and nutrients and enzymes, and also antibodies that will protect the baby from infection. Now, during the first week, after about 3 to 5 days, we get the secretion of that milk, true milk, is now being started to be produced. So we initially get transitional milk, and then eventually the mature milk. And when we get to the following lessons, we will see how important it is that the baby gets initially first the proper colostrum, but then eventually the mature mother's. Now, the second important aspect of lactation or breastfeeding is the so-called movement of milk, or the let-down reflex. The moment that the baby starts sucking on the nipple, I've told you that there's a lot of nerve endings on the nipple. This sucking of the baby stimulates the nerve endings, which eventually cause the production and the secretion of oxytocin. And oxytocin causes milk ejection, or the milk moves forward in the ducts. And we also call that the let-down reflex. The fact that the milk moves forward and that the alveoli are being emptied makes that more milk can be produced. So the more milk is moving out of the breast, the more the prolactin is being stimulated to cause more milk production. And the more frequent, obviously, the baby sucks on the nipples and stimulate this let-down reflex, also it will stimulate the production of milk. Now, if we look further at the let-down reflex, some women describe it as they feel a tingling or a itching or a warmth in their breasts when they have a let down reflex and the milk flow starts to increase. Others might say that they can hear or feel that the baby sucking slows down and that the baby begins to swallow rhythmically, because now the baby does not need to suck so hard to get the milk, because the milk is being basically flowing forward in the breast because of this let down reflex. Now, this reflex also becomes a conditioned reflex in the sense that in the early weeks of nursing or breastfeeding, the let down reflex might take several minutes from where the baby starts sucking and the let down reflex happens. Later on, the moment that the mother hears the baby crying, the let down reflex might happen or start happening, or immediately after the baby started sucking on the breasts. Even sometimes when the mother starts thinking of her baby, she might experience a let down reflex. It also happens better when the mother is more relaxed and feeling more comfortable and confident, and this plays a very important role in this, I almost want to call it the sustainability of breastfeeding, that to keep on, for the let down reflex to keep on happening, the mother needs to be relaxed. Now, we also distinguish between fore milk and hind milk. Now, these milk that's been stored here in the sinuses, now the milk moves forward all the time while the baby is sucking. Now, when the baby stops sucking and the breastfeeding is over, milk is being stored here in the sinuses. And we call that milk we call fore milk. For while it's been stored here in the sinuses, there happens changes into the milk, and the milk becomes low fat but high in protein and carbohydrates. And it's more, the liquid content of this milk is also more, so it satisfies the baby's initial thirst. But this is not good enough only for the baby. So the baby has to suck longer so that he doesn't only get the milk in the sinuses, but that he also gets the milk that's been produced here in the alveoli. And that milk is, the fat globules are being more and bigger, and then the fat content of the hind milk is much more than the fat content of the fore milk, which is very important to keep the baby satisfied. And that brings us to the end of this lesson on the anatomy and the physiology of the breast. The next lesson will be on the sucking and the latching of the baby, to put the baby onto the breast and make sure that the baby suck on the right way for this physiology and hormones to act in the right and optimal way. See you then.